It was a beautiful morning on the island of Sodor. Thomas the tank engine's blue paint sparkled in the sunshine as he puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clarabel. He was feeling very pleased with himself. "Hello, Thomas," whistled Percy. "You look splendid." "Yes, indeed," boasted Thomas. "Blue is the only proper color for an engine." "Oh, I don't know. I like my brown paint," said Toby. "I've always been green. I wouldn't want to be any other color either," added Percy. Well, anyway, huffed Thomas, "blue is the only color for a really useful engine. Everyone knows that." Percy said no more. He just grinned at Toby. Later, Thomas was resting when Percy arrived. A large hopper was loading his trucks full of coal. Thomas was still being cheeky. "Careful," he warned. "Watch out with those silly trucks." Go on, muttered the trucks. "And by the way," went on Thomas, "those buffers don't look very safe to me." The last load poured down. "Help! I'm choking!" cried Thomas. "Get me out!" Percy was worried, but he couldn't help laughing. Thomas's smart blue paint was covered in coal dust from smoke box to bunker. "Ha ha," chuckled Percy. "You don't look really useful now, Thomas. You look really disgraceful." "I'm not disgraceful," choked Thomas. "You did that on purpose. Get me out." It took so long to clean Thomas that he wasn't in time for his next train. Toby had to take Annie and Clarabel. "Poor Thomas," whispered Annie to Clarabel. They were most upset. Thomas was grumpy in the shed that night. Toby thought it a great joke, but Percy was cross with Thomas for thinking he had made his paint dirty on purpose. Fancy a really useful blue engine like Thomas becoming a disgrace to the Fat Controller's Railway. Next day, Thomas was feeling more cheerful as he watched Percy bring his trucks from the junction. The trucks were heavy and Percy was tired. "Have a drink," said his driver, "then you'll feel better." The water column stood at the end of the siding with the unsafe buffers. Suddenly, Percy found that he couldn't stop. The buffers didn't stop him either. "Oh!" wailed Percy. "Help!" The buffers were broken and Percy was wheel-deep in coal. It was time for Thomas to leave. He had seen everything. "Now Percy has learned his lesson too," he chuckled to himself. That night, the two engines made up their quarrel. "I didn't cause your accident on purpose, Thomas," whispered Percy. "You do know that, don't you?" "Of course," replied Thomas, "and I'm sorry I was cheeky. Your green paint looks splendid again, too. In future, we'll both be more careful of coal."
It was a cold winter's morning on the island of Sodor. The wind was bitter on the ground, hard with frost. Thomas and Percy were cold and cross. All I want is a warm boiler, huffed Thomas. Firelighter knows that. He's late. He's not late, replied Percy. This cold weather woke us up early. Gusts of wind swirled flakes of snow towards Thomas. Then they swooshed round Percy too. Why don't we talk about something else, shivered Percy. Yes, like how silly we look when our funnels turn into icicles. That's not funny. Maybe we'll stop feeling cold if we talk about warm things like sunshine and steam. And firelighters, muttered Thomas. Scarves, continued Percy. Scarves? That's what you need, Percy. A woolly scarf round your funnel. Thomas was only teasing, but Percy thought happily about scarves until the firelighter came. The Fat Controller was enjoying hot porridge for breakfast. He was looking forward to taking important visitors on a tour of the railway and had pressed his special trousers. I shall put them in my trunk and change into them just before the photographs are taken, he said to his wife. Then he set off to catch his train. Percy was now working hard. His fire was burning nicely and he had plenty of steam. But he still thought about scarves. He saw them everywhere he went. My funnel's cold, he puffed. I want a scarf. Rubbish, Percy, said Henry. Engines don't wear scarves. Engines with proper funnels do, replied Percy. You've only got a small one. Before Henry could answer, Percy puffed away. Henry snorted. He was looking forward to pulling the special train. It was time for the photographs. Everyone was excited. The Fat Controller was waiting on the platform for his trousers. They were in a trunk amongst a big load of baggage. The porters were taking the baggage trolley across the line. They were walking backwards to see that nothing fell off. Percy was still being cheeky. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station. Percy wanted to surprise the coaches by coming in as quietly as he could. But the porters didn't hear him either. Boxes and bags burst everywhere. Oh! groaned Percy. Sticky streams of jam trickled down Percy's face. A top hat hung on his lamp iron. Worst of all, a pair of trousers coiled lovingly round his funnel. Everyone was very angry. The Fat Controller seized the top hat. "Mine," he said. "Percy, look at this." "Yes, sir, I am, sir." "My best trousers, too." "Yes, sir. Please, sir." "We must pay the passengers for their spoiled clothes, and my trousers are ruined. I hope this will teach you not to play tricks with the coaches." Percy went off to the yard. He felt very silly. On the way, he met James. "Hello, Percy, so you found a scarf, eh? But legs go in trousers, not funnels." And he puffed away to tell Henry the news. That evening, Thomas and Percy were resting in the shed. Percy's driver had taken away the trousers and given Percy a good rub down. "Firelighters promised to come early tomorrow," said Thomas. Henry arrived. He'd enjoyed taking the visitors around, and now he felt sorry for Percy too. "Driver says the weather will be warmer tomorrow. You won't need a scarf, Percy." "Certainly not," replied Percy. "Engines don't need scarves. Engines need warm boilers. Everyone knows that." Duncan would not stop grumbling. He grumbled that he wasn't polished enough. He grumbled that he was overworked. Most of all, he grumbled about the passengers. "I'm ashamed of you, Duncan," said Skarloey. "Thank goodness Rheneas is coming home soon. Perhaps he'll teach you some sense before it's too late." "What has Rheneas to do with me?" "Rheneas saved our railway," replied Skarloey. "Please tell us about it," said Peter Sam. "Well," began Skarloey, "it was before you came here. Things were bad. Rheneas and I had to keep the trains running, or our railway would have to close." "How awful," murmured Peter Sam. "I tried hard," continued Skarloey, "but my old wheels ached. Rheneas understood. 'It's my turn now,' he'd tell me. He was often short of steam, but he always struggled to a station and rested there. 'I mustn't stop between stations,' he'd say. 'The passengers wouldn't like it.'" "Pshaw," huffed Duncan. He had stopped on a viaduct and hadn't cared at all. "Passengers," continued Skarloey, "get cross if you stop at the wrong places. Rheneas stopped in a wrong place once, and this is what happened. One wet and windy afternoon when the rails were damp, Rheneas was travelling home with a full train. There were even passengers in the guard's van. It wasn't a comfortable ride at all. Rheneas's wheels kept slipping, and it was a steep climb. At last, his wheels gripped the rails again. The worst is over, he thought. Now we're away. But they weren't. "Ah! I've got cramp!" he groaned. And Rheneas stopped on the loneliest part of the line. His driver examined him carefully. "Your valve gear has jammed. We need to reach the next station. Do you think you can still get us there?" "I'll try," replied Rheneas. Rheneas did his best. "If I fail," he thought to himself, "the passengers will be cross and the railway will close." Everything blurred. He was really too tired to make another turn of his wheels. But he did. And another, and another, and another. Finally, tired but triumphant, Rheneas reached the station. "I'm here at last," he wheezed. "Thank you for getting us home," said the passengers. "We'll tell all our friends what a fine railway this is." His driver was delighted. "You're a gallant little engine," he said to Rheneas. "When you're rested, we'll mend you so you'll be ready for tomorrow." And, smiled Skarloey, Rheneas was always ready for tomorrow. "Thank you for telling us about him," whispered Duncan. "I was wrong. Passengers are important after all." The next day, Rheneas came home. All the engines were there to greet him. Edward pushed his truck to the siding where he was lifted onto his rails. This was the signal for a chorus of whistles from engines large and small. Everyone was happy, and Rheneas was the happiest of all. "You know," he whispered to Skarloey, "this helps a little engine to feel that at last he has really come home."
It was winter on the island of Sodor. The snow covered fields and railway lines. All the engines were hard at work except Percy. Come on, Percy, this isn't time to have a rest. I'm stuck, moaned Percy, and my funnel's freezing up. Driver's sent for help. Ah, huffed Thomas, and went on his way. Later, Thomas had to help clear snow by a tunnel, but it was too deep and he got stuck. Thomas was very cross. Snow is nothing but trouble, he moaned. Rusty was close by. Driver says that this winter is just about as bad as the worst winter of all. How worst? Asked Thomas. I'll tell you, replied Rusty, and the little engine did. Skarloey was working the line to the slate mines in the mountains. When the snow came, it was difficult to work. They used the snow as a double buffer zone to help stop trucks skidding through to the ravine. One day, Skarloey set off to the mines with some empty trucks. Meanwhile, there was trouble at the mine. The winch that hauls the trucks up and down wasn't working properly. Skarloey had reached the ravine. High above him were the mine yards. That snow looks dangerous, said his driver. The sound of your engine and the trucks could cause an avalanche. I'll set off an emergency cap and see what happens. Skarloey watched as his driver prepared it. Then they ran over the cap. The bang echoed round the gorge. Nothing happened. Good, said his driver. All's well, we'll have a cup of cocoa and then make our way. But high above them, all was not well. A long line of full trucks was about to be winched down the slope. They had just started their journey when some empty trucks became derailed. The winch groaned. Break it! Snap it! Shouted the trucks. And they did. On! Faster, faster! They giggled. The snowbank and buffers will stop 'em, said a workman. But he was wrong. The trucks plunged into the ravine. Skarloey and his driver heard the noise and looked up. Avalanche! They cried. When the snow plume cleared, there was no sign of Skarloey. He was buried deep inside the high drift blocking the ravine. And then came the funny part. What's the funny part about an avalanche? Asked Thomas. Well... No one knew that the heat from Skarloey's engine had helped to make an igloo. It's a snowball. It's a snow house. It's an engine. They cleared away the ice only to find Skarloey's driver and fireman drinking cocoa as if nothing had happened. Luckily for them, but it just goes to show you can't trust trucks. Or snow, said Rusty. The men had just cleared the snow away from him when Gordon puffed by with his machine. Hey, look out, there's snow about, laughed Gordon. He stopped by the tunnel and wheeshed loudly. Then it happened. Help! Cried Gordon. If Skarloey survived a snowfall and laughed, surely a big proud engine like you can do the same, chuckled Thomas. Moaned Gordon, and then fell as silent as the snow. Gordon is a very proud steam engine. He's the fastest engine on the island of Sodor. He loves speeding along his line with the wind blowing across his funnel. "You've broken the record again," said his driver. "I'm the fastest," boasted Gordon. But not all the engines were impressed. "Speed isn't everything," said James smugly. "But being reliable and useful is," said Thomas. "You slow engines will never understand," snorted Gordon, "because you'll never go as fast as me." The Fat Controller arrived with news of a special for Thomas. "I want you to collect the jet engine and take it to the airfield." "What's a jet engine?" asked Percy. "A jet engine goes forward by pushing hot air out of its back," the Fat Controller said. "Just like when you blow up a balloon and let it go," added Thomas. "It's very fast." Thomas likes making special deliveries for the Fat Controller. It makes him feel special. But secretly, he wished he could go as fast as Gordon. Just once. Thomas arrived at the docks excited to see the jet engine. It was shiny and modern, and Thomas had never seen anything like it. He just couldn't wait to start his journey, but Cranky was taking his time. "Hurry up," puffed Thomas. "This is a special. Cranky did not like being told what to do, especially by an engine. He became so cranky that he was careless with his hook. His hook knocked the switch, and the switch started the jet engine, and the engine began to whine. The whine got louder and louder and louder. "Uh-oh," said Cranky. Before he could say anything else, the jet engine was rocketing Thomas up the track. "Oh," said Thomas. The driver tried to put on the brakes, but Thomas couldn't stop. "Oh, boy!" The station master called ahead. "Clear the lines, it's a runaway train." Signals were changed and points were switched. Thomas had never been so excited. Thomas flew by James and rocketed past Henry and raced by Percy. They were amazed. Bertie was excited when he saw Thomas flying down the track. "Want a race, Thomas?" beeped Bertie. Never mind. No one had ever seen an engine go so fast. Gordon had no idea that Thomas was racing along the main line. "I am the fastest," said Gordon proudly. "Hi, Gordon. Bye, Gordon." Gordon could not believe what he had seen. At last, the jet engine ran out of fuel, and Thomas was back under his own power. He steamed gently back into Knapford Station. "Sorry for overtaking you back there, Gordon." "Overtake me? I didn't notice," Gordon huffed. "You didn't notice the fastest engine on the island," said Henry. "Yes, I am the fastest," puffed Thomas. Percy felt a little sorry for Gordon. "Gordon doesn't have to go as fast as a jet engine. He's a steam engine." "But he's still full of hot air," whistled James, and Gordon wheeshed away.
we didn't know until we tried. Together we made it happen. Together we saw it through. That's why we'll pull together whenever there's work to do. Thomas has seen the answer. This came to him in a dream. From now on we've all decided. Together we'll stay a team.
Duck, the Great Western Engine, puffed sadly to Edward's station. "It's not fair," he complained. "Diesel has been telling lies about me and made Sir Topham Hatt and all the engines think I'm horrid." Edward smiled. "I know you aren't, and so does Sir Topham Hatt. You wait and see. Why don't you help me with these cars?" Duck felt happier with Edward and set to work at once. The cars were silly, heavy, and noisy. The two engines had to work hard, pushing and pulling all afternoon. At last, they reached the top of the hill. "Goodbye," whistled Duck, and rolled gently over the crossing to the other line. Duck loved coasting down the hill, running easily with the wind whistling past. Suddenly, it was a conductor's warning whistle. "Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!" laughed the cars. "We've broken away! We've broken away! Chase him! Bump him! Throw him off the rails!" they yelled. "Hurry, Duck, hurry!" said the driver. They raced through Edward Station, but the cars were catching up. "As fast as we can, then they'll catch us gradually." The driver was gaining control. "Another clear mile and we'll do it." "Oh, glory! Look at that!" James was just pulling out on their line from the station ahead. Any minute, there could be a crash. "It's up to you now, Duck," cried the driver. Duck put every ounce of weight and steam against the cars. "It's too late!" Duck groaned. He veered into a siding where a barber had set up shop. He was shaving a customer. The silly cars had knocked their conductor off his van and left him far behind after he had whistled the warning. But the cars didn't care. They were feeling very pleased with themselves. "Beg pardon, sir," gasped Duck. "Excuse my intrusion." "No, I won't," said the barber. "You've frightened my customers. I'll teach you," and he lathered Duck's face all over. Poor Duck. Thomas was helping to pull the cars away when Sir Topham Hatt arrived. "I do not like engines popping through my walls," fumed the barber. "I appreciate your feelings," said Sir Topham Hatt, "but you must know that this engine and his crew have prevented a serious accident. It was a very close shave." "Oh," said the barber. Oh, excuse me." He filled a basin of water to wash Duck's face. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were being a brave engine." "That's all right, sir. I didn't know that either." "You were very brave indeed," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I'm proud of you." Sir Topham Hatt watched the rescue operation. Then he had more news for Duck. "And when you are properly washed and mended, you are coming home." "Home, sir? Do you mean the yard?" "Of course." "But, sir, they don't like me. They like Diesel. Not now. I never believed Diesel, so I sent him packing. The engines are sorry and want you back. A few days later, when he came home, there was a really rousing welcome for Duck, the great Western engine.
Picture a land where the skies are blue, a storybook land of wonder, a magical island just waiting for you. Island of Sodo will make your dreams come true. Imagine a place where the sun always smiles, the valleys are green as can be. Friends that you love are all waiting for you. Island of Sodo will make your dreams come true. Children, follow the dream to a land of make-believe.
And mountains. Look for the skies with stars in their eyes.
Island of Sodo will make your dreams come true. Children, follow the dream to a land of magical land where dreams come true. their time until they get their chance. When no one is expecting it, they pounce. They push and they push until it's all too late. On, the trucks have won again. Because those trucks and trucks will get the engines every time. Trucks and trucks will run the engines off the line. They push them here, push them there, till they go too fast. Then they push them once again, laughing while they crash. Trucks and trucks will get the engines every time. Trucks and trucks will run the engines off the line. They don't care how big they are, to them it's just a game. Those trucks and trucks will get them all the same. They don't care how big they are, to them it's just a game. Those trucks and trucks will get them all the same.
Every day, Sir Topham Hatt came to the station to catch his train. "Hello," he always said to Thomas. "Don't let the silly freight cars tease you. Remember, you have an important job as a special helper in the train yard." There were lots of freight cars, and Thomas worked very hard pushing and pulling them into place. There was also a small coach and two strange things his driver called cranes. "That's the breakdown train," he told Thomas. "The cranes are for lifting heavy things like engines and coaches and freight cars." One day, Thomas was in the yard. Suddenly, he heard an engine whistling. "Help! Help!" A freight train came rushing through much too fast. The engine was James, and he was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire. "They're pushing me! They're pushing me!" he panted. On, laughed the freight cars, still whistling, "Help! Help!" Poor James disappeared. "I'd like to teach those freight cars a lesson," said Thomas the tank engine. Soon came the alarm. "James is off the line! The breakdown train! Quickly!" Thomas was coupled on, and off they went. Thomas worked his hardest. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," he puffed. He wasn't pretending to be like Gordon. He really meant it. "Bother those freight cars and their tricks. I hope poor James isn't hurt." James's driver and firemen were feeling him all over to see if he was hurt. "Never mind, James," they said. "It was those silly freight cars and your old wooden brakes that caused the accident." Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside. Then he pulled away the unhurt freight cars. "Oh dear, oh dear," they groaned. "Serves you right, serves you right," puffed Thomas. He was hard at work, puffing backwards and forwards all afternoon. "This'll teach you a lesson, this'll teach you a lesson," he told the freight cars. And they answered, "Yes, it will, yes, it will." They left the broken cars. Then, with two cranes, they put James back on the rails. He tried to move, but he couldn't, so Thomas helped him back to the shed. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting anxiously for them. "Well, Thomas," he said, "I've heard all about it, and I'm very pleased with you. You're a really useful engine. James shall have some proper brakes and a new coat of paint, and you shall have a branch line all to yourself." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Thomas. Now Thomas is as happy as can be. He has a branch line and 2 coaches called Annie and Clarabelle. He puffs proudly backwards and forwards with them all day. He is never lonely. Edward and Henry stop quite often and tell him the news. Gordon is always in a hurry, but never forgets to say, "Boop, boop," and Thomas always whistles, "Beep, beep," in return.
Thomas's new trucks. It was a busy, bustling day on the island of Sodor. The engines and their freight cars were working very hard. Thomas was shunting freight cars in the yard, but his cars were old and rusty. It was very hard work. Then James arrived. "Look," James puffed proudly, "Sir Topham Hatt gave me some smart new freight cars. They're much nicer than yours." "It's not fair," moaned Thomas. "I want new cars too." The next morning, Sir Topham Hatt had a surprise for Thomas. "Thomas, your trucks are getting too old for your heavy loads. You ought to have some new ones, just like James." Thomas was delighted. Thomas collected his new freight cars and puffed proudly away. But when Thomas arrived at the docks, there was James. He was showing his new freight cars to Bill and Ben. "I've got new freight cars too," puffed Thomas. "They're even nicer than James's," puffed Bill and Ben. "Your freight cars may be nice and new now," huffed James, "but you'll never keep yours as clean as mine." "Yes, I will," chuffed Thomas. "I'll have the cleanest freight cars on the island." James watched Thomas puff away. The next day, Thomas puffed into the quarry. James's cars were already loaded. "I've got my stone already," boasted James, "and not a spot of quarry dust on me." "I can do that too," pouted Thomas. So Thomas backed under the hopper. But just as the stone was released, Thomas's freight cars chuckled. Then they rolled a bit more. "Bother," huffed Thomas. "Ha!" puffed James. "Your cars don't look so new now." Thomas was cross. Thomas puffed to the coaling plant. "This time, behave yourselves," Thomas snapped. "I want you to stay clean." When he arrived, Thomas backed carefully and slowly under the coal hopper. But the freight cars chuckled. Then they rolled too far again. Thomas and his freight cars were dirtier than ever. Later, when Thomas arrived at the washdown, there was James. "See? I have got the cleanest freight cars. You'll be here for hours getting yours cleaned," laughed James. Thomas was very cross. The next morning, when Thomas puffed into the yard, he had an idea. If I use my old trucks to take the coal, he puffed, my new freight cars will still look clean and new. So Thomas backed up to collect his old trucks. He collected some coal from the coaling plant. Then he raced across the countryside. Ha! Laughed Thomas. I can get these trucks really messy and get the coal to the docks on time. Then there was trouble. The rusty coupling broke. Thomas's trucks were rolling by themselves. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. Thomas applied his brakes, but he stopped too quickly. The trucks bumped into the back of Thomas, and the coal spilled all over the tracks. Thomas was stuck. Soon, Sir Topham Hatt arrived on Harvey. Thomas, these trucks are too old for pulling coal, Sir Topham Hatt said sternly. And now you have caused confusion and delay. Sorry, sir, said Thomas. Harvey and the workmen soon cleared the tracks. But Thomas still had to deliver the coal to the docks. So he raced back to the shunting yards. And this time, he collected his smart new freight cars. Harvey and the workmen loaded the coal into Thomas's freight cars. The new cars were soon filthy, but they were filled with coal and ready to go. And they were very happy. Thomas raced to the docks. Suddenly, the trucks weren't being troublesome. They rolled easily up hills. They rattled quickly down hills. And they sang all the way. Thomas raced into the docks. We need to unload quickly, the dock manager called. But don't worry, we'll try and keep your new freight cars clean. That's okay, puffed Thomas. My freight cars would rather be useful than clean. Just then, James puffed into the docks. Look at your freight cars, boasted James. Filthy again, not like mine. James tried to pull away, but his troublesome trucks didn't want to be clean anymore. Hold back, they chuckled. Just then, Cranky's cable snapped. He dropped a large crate of melons. Bother, huffed James. James, tooted Thomas, I think freight cars like to be useful rather than clean. And all the trucks agreed.
It's Thomas. You're the leader. Come on. Okay. They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8. Shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue. They're the useful crew. That's who. All with different roles to play. Round Tidmouth sheds and far away. Now Stanley's joined this friendly pack. But who's this coming down the track? The list is long, it never ends. James and Percy, Huff and Puff. And Emily, she knows her stuff. Henry, Edward, what a pair. Toby, like I say, he's square. Gordon thunders down the line. Everyone's a friend of mine. That's right. Come on. age, where small and strong is all the rage. So handle Rusty, Mighty Mac, Fearless Freddy at the back, Rheneas, and then Peter Sam, Scarloey, Duncan, he's my man. With Mr. Percival in charge, no work's too hard, no job's too large. Yeah, Thomas, he's my number one. Showing him the morning sun. Working hard but having fun. Come on, Thomas. You're the leader. Yeah, you are the leader, Thomas. You're the leader. Jeremy and Harold, Rocky, Harvey too. So teenagers, Bertie, the really useful crew. Just engines full of steam. There's Jack and all, he's building team. Tipping stones and digging roads. Filling trucks and loading loads. Sir Topham Hatt, he keeps an eye on every engine passing by. Everything is tickety-boo, cause out in front is you know who. Yeah, yeah, come on. Thomas, he's my number one. Showing him the morning sun. Working hard but having fun. Thomas, you're the leader. Thomas, you're the leader. Thomas, he's my number one. Showing him the morning sun. Working hard but having fun. You're the leader. You're the leader. Thomas, you're the leader. It's Thomas. It's Thomas. Thomas the leader. It's Thomas. It's Thomas. It's Thomas the leader.
I'm gonna bet this time to get this, miss the bus. I will regret this. I've searched both near and far.